Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I have yet another movie review. This movie is a horror documentary from the United States, English language, released in the year 2015, directed by Rodney Asher, and this film is called The Nightmare. So The Nightmare is about the phenomenon of sleep paralysis. Basically, people who wake up, they think they're awake, they're fully alert, but they're paralysed. And so they get tormented by these vivid imagery that basically indicates that there is something going on in their lives. So they're, night after night, they're suffering from these horrible situations and they're getting worse. And so there are a few sufferers in this documentary who are documenting their experiences, and all these experiences have a strong similarity, and that similarity are the shadow men. Basically, these shadowy figures who come into the room and basically torment them. So basically the movie is alluding to something of a greater power, which is far more terrifying than just a normal bad dream. So what that is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Nightmare. This was very exciting for me because as a child I didn't have sleep paralysis, but I had night terrors. Now I was constantly rushing to the hospital. From the ages of 6 to 9 I visited the hospital quite a bit, and sometimes I was actually rushed to hospital in an ambulance, and I never understood what was wrong with me. My throat would swell up to the point where I couldn't breathe, and so I was absolutely terrified. What is going on with me? When is this going to happen next? And so I was always just very paranoid, and I was just worried, and the anticipation of it happening again terrified me. And so then I eventually started having night terrors, regular night terrors, and the recurring night terror that I had was that there was a growling lion in the corner of my room, and I'd wake up in a cold sweat. I was absolutely mortified. I just couldn't understand what was wrong with me, and I think that was a manifestation of the fear, the fear of uncertainty, which has really plagued my life ever since. And although I'm not having night terrors, this movie really brought back the child in me, that scared child in me, so it really had a deeper impact because it hit me on a very personal level. And so that's the reason why I really wanted to see this. When I saw the trailer I thought to myself, okay, I haven't suffered from sleep paralysis, but I know what they're going through, in that you're seeing terrifying things when you actually think you're awake, and it shows you how powerful the human mind can be and how absolutely terrifying the human mind can be, and that sometimes going to sleep is the scariest thing you could ever imagine. So for sufferers of this, I think it will really hit home, and it really will create those demons within your life. And whether or not that's a good or bad thing, if you like genuine feeling of horror, then I think The Nightmare really delivers that, because it does hit you on a very strong documentary base, but at the same time the beauty of this film is that it does hit you on a very horror base as well. So you've got the fine juggling between a realistic documentary about something that actually really happens, and then you've got a straight out horror film when they're reenacting these terrible experiences. So I thought the horror aspect of it was absolutely, it was terrifying. It was very, very scary, and I haven't felt this way since I watched The Exorcist for the first time. I was actually gripping the blankets over me, thinking to myself, okay, I am genuinely getting creeped out. I watched this late at night, all the lights were off, and it genuinely got under my skin, and that's everything you want from a horror experience. And unfortunately, as far as horror films are concerned these days, that is a very rare occurrence. So when it does happen, you remember these films, and I'll definitely remember The Nightmare because it did strike me with a level of terror on more than one occasion. So the documentary aspect was very good. You've got these people who are going through their the torment that they have, and they're not really giving you too much about these people, and it does give you the indication that maybe these people have had traumatic backgrounds, and that maybe these are manifestations, just like the manifestations for me of that unknown fear that was manifested into this lion. Maybe these shadow men were the manifestation of their fears in their personal lives, and that's very intriguing. That's what keeps you interested in the actual film and the way that it goes. And then as each experience of these sufferers gets worse and worse, it gets scarier and scarier, and you think that it is building and it is alluding to something of a greater power, and that is the reason why you will be glued to the screen. And it is very, very scary in what it actually does. So I thought that, as I said, the fine blend between horror and documentary was really well done, and it does hit you on a level where it can be scary, it can be unrealistic in the sense that this is a dream. So although they're seeing these horrible things, you're still connected to reality by the fact that this is sleep paralysis, and that it shows you how terrifying the human mind can be, and that the opportunities in the human mind are limitless. So you can just see these absolutely horrible things that don't exist, but it's all in the human mind. So it really does show you how scary the mind can be and how powerful it can be, and that it can really recollect things that have happened in your past, and that sometimes the things in your past don't really get away from you, and it does shape you as the person you are. So majority of this film was very, very well done, but unfortunately I thought towards the end of the movie it does lose a lot of credibility, and it forgets what it really wants to be. And I think they take it too far with the gimmick of this really happens, and so that we can suggest all these ridiculous sort of possibilities without being labelled as unrealistic, because sleep paralysis is really not talked about very much, and so because it's not understood very much, these filmmakers thought that they could create something that was getting increasingly ridiculous. And that to me was the biggest problem of this film, is that it loses sight of what it wants to be. It loses sight of the documentary approach that it has at the start of the film, and that the second half it feels like it's going just down straight out horror territory, and that it's basically loses all of the scariness that the first half created. So at the first half I was absolutely terrified, but the second half I was becoming more and more comfortable, because I thought to myself, okay, they're really losing focus of what they want to do. It's not really giving an insight into sleep paralysis anymore. It's just getting lost in its horror aspect. It's getting lost in making something that is so ridiculous to the point where you're thinking that these directors are taking creative liberties and they're really cashing in off the sufferers. So I could forgive someone for thinking that this is an insult into these sufferers. I didn't think it was a straight out insult, but I thought that it got lost. It lost focus, and it just goes down a path where it does really release all the tension that the first half had created. But having said that, the first half is definitely worth seeing if you are a sufferer of sleep paralysis or even night terrors, and you really want to see what the explanations are. And for me, reminiscing back into my childhood, I think it is a manifestation of my fears, and that's the beauty of these terrifying things, is that we don't know everything about them. We don't know what generates these fears and what generates these night terrors or sleep paralysis, and so the level of unknown is the scariest thing about it. But I thought that this movie, it does get a little bit too silly, and it does go overboard to a degree where it releases all the good things that it actually accomplished to start with. So overall, for The Nightmare, a very intriguing film, a very scary film, but then again, it really should have been a lot better than it actually turns out to be. So overall, for The Nightmare, going to give it 2.5 stars. Still going to recommend it. Go out there and see it. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.